Welcome to another episode of Mindset Mutiny. Today, I'm introducing you to a guest who's been instrumental in shaping a huge part of my journey, especially when it comes to running. He's the kind of person who doesn't just talk about resilience, discipline, and self mastery, he lives it every single day. This man has been there to take me out of my head and into my body when I needed it most. He listened, guided, and told me the hard truths I needed to hear. He's humble, intelligent, and relentless. A person who has proven himself time and time again. But let me tell you a little bit more about him. He's a multi time marathoner, an avid cyclist, and a lifelong learner who never stops pushing himself to be better. His leadership skills are second to none, and he brings that same energy into every aspect of his life. He's not just a great athlete, he's an excellent leader, a devoted husband, and a father of two incredible kids. So today, we're going to dive into some deep conversations about relationship, his thoughts on my journey, what motivates him to keep pushing himself, and the kind of self talk that keeps him going even when the road gets tough. I can't wait to share this perspective with all of you, so buckle up. This is going to be a powerful episode. Let's welcome my friend, my running coach, and someone I deeply respect, Ben Kelley. What's up, brother?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, man. It's a little late. Appreciate you making the time.
No, it's all right. This is great.
Yeah, I was running out of breath there on the intro, so I think we're ready to go, man. So
Let's
thanks
do
for
it.
joining me tonight. I want to have you on the podcast because, personally for me, you have been a big part of, what I am today. And that, it's been a 5 year journey, and our friendship has progressed and, it got honest real quick, with you. And I'm very comfortable talking to you. And I think other people need to hear about the relationship that we've built, some of the things that, you've given me, you've changed my life forever, which is not something you can say about everybody. So I wanted to
Mm.
share that, and I want other people to see what that could look like in their life if they found somebody of the same quality. And I'll let you say some things, but I just got to thank you from the bottom of my heart for you came into my life at the right time, and you were unapologetically who you are, and that's what I love about you. And again, man, you've molded me so much. You have no idea. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I certainly didn't expect to have the impact that I did. Um, you probably didn't realize that mentioning anything related to bikes in the office was going to hold my attention pretty much forever, whether you wanted it to or not. So I feel like that's probably what kicked the whole thing off, really.
Oh man. Well,
Um,
that's ironic. It's really ironic because because what bikes means to my life as well. There's if anybody's heard the whole story, you'd know that bikes saved my life literally, and it just so happened to be that getting on a bike changed some serious issues that I was having, and it's just kind of impressive. And then you have a great passion for bicycles, which pushed my passion for it, and it brought me back to something that I loved as a kid. I remember when I was a kid and I was upset or stressed out, I'd just go and pedal for hours. And everything would feel better. And this is, when I say a young kid, this, before I had my driver's license, this is when you don't have any ride and you need to get away from whatever you need to get away from, I just would hop on my bike and pedal till I didn't have anything left. And I'd come back, pull into the garage. And, as a young kid, it's just like, it was therapy. So I have never thought of what I just said has never come to mind until just now, talking to you and you saying what you said. So it makes, wow, that's very, deep for me right now. So thank you because I'm not even joking, man. I've never thought of that before. And it makes all the sense in the world as to why the bike does what it does today for me, whatever, 30 years
yeah,
later.
it is therapy, whether you think it is or not, and whether you need it or not. It's just there, and and anybody, you could be in the best mood of your life and you hop on the bike and just go out for a spin around the block, and you're usually feeling a little bit better than when you got onto it in the first place. But
Yeah, man.
yeah, maybe even it was just in passing. I don't even remember, and I don't think you've talked about it on this podcast. But doing that charity build that you did a few years ago, I think really kind of created the relationship that we have today. That
Yeah.
really it exploded from there, because as soon as I heard that you were into that, I was like, well, what do you use it? Where are you going to get the frame? Like, are you going to build it yourself? Are you going to have somebody do it? Where are you getting the parts? And probably had more questions than you even had thought to ask yourself yet.
Right.
Um, and kind of, seeing you bring that whole project through from pretty much an idea to fruition was pretty wild. It was wild just to watch, and to think that I, maybe gave you a pointer here or there, probably fairly minimal, but
No, you gave me a
it,
ton.
it was it was pretty awesome.
Oh man, I totally, that's what I got to sit back and appreciate those things more, because I haven't thought about that since like the day we shipped the bike off, right? Like
Yeah.
I kind of moved on from it, but like I mean, Ben, that was like the coolest fucking thing ever. I like legitimately, there were the biggest names in the bike world who knew who I was, were sending parts to my house for a great cause. It's like not only
Without even really knowing if you were legit or not.
no idea who I was. I sent them an email
And
about
fortunately you were, but
well, that's a fair point too. Like, so to back up, like I'm glad you brought this up, because this was like a huge part of my. I always talk about a springboard, like and momentum, right? So I had momentum moving into that charity bike build, right? And then from there, like shit just like exploded for me, like physically, emotionally, spiritually, like everything just exploded from there. When I had come into that, I wasn't feeling great. I was having some issues still. I wasn't where I am today. And coming into that and learning, like sitting there and being like helping others, like helped me heal from what I was dealing with, like so much. And I talk about people that are special and close, and why to keep your circle small, right? So when all that stuff was going on, and I was found kind of like biking a little bit, you know, uh, you obviously Mike Whalen. He suggested to me like, yo, dude, you should build something like and see if you can do it for charity and see if you can get people to help you. And I'm like, no, I know I shot him down right away. Which that was the old Mike Ivanov, right? Like now somebody suggests that, and I'm like, full gas pedal, get the fuck out of my way. But Mike pushed me, and he's like, dude, you really need to do it. Like, look how much you love bikes. Like, you're good at this type of stuff. You can visualize something and you can create it. Like, you can do all these things, and those are things that somebody like would have to tell me I can do, because I would never say that I could do those things back then. Now I understand that I can do them now, but it's something I just know I can do, and I just run towards the opportunity. But when Mike suggested it, totally no way. And then he knows me enough to like let it marinate, and then like to follow up, and then he knows if he's like kind of challenges me like you won't do it, like he knows I'm going to go do it. So he
right,
kind of he got me to do it. And it all started with like I have to find a bike frame. Where am I going to bike frame? And at the time, like I didn't have a lot of spare money laying around. Like I couldn't have funded this myself, especially at the
right.
quality level that it was built at, right? So I couldn't fund it myself. So started emailing big name bike companies and just saying, hey, what's up? My name is Mike Ivanov. Mountain biking, saved my life, because it did. And there's articles on the internet that are, will document that part of my journey, which is really also kind of cool, right?
Yeah,
And this was before anybody decided to support me. So, this one guy I reached out to, a Pink Bike, which is a huge community. I told him what I was doing, and he's like, hey, dude, we'll get you a feature. And he ended up helping me meet a couple contacts, like the guy at TRP for the brake setup that they gave me. Then he helped me meet some different people. So there's a lot of components on a bicycle, and every single component was donated to the build. I'm trying to think if I bought anything. If I maybe bought the camouflage vinyl that I did on the fork and the frame. Like Banshee sent me a $3,000 frame to my house. Like, here you go, let's do it. And another really cool story, not to get too far off track, but the guy who built the wheel set, um,
Jerry.
yeah, well, like one of the best wheel sets you can find local in Vermont. And I'm like, hey man, like how much you gonna charge me? I thought I was gonna have to buy the wheels. And he's like, just send me the hubs, which I9 donated, which was also amazing, right? Hubs I can't even afford for my own bicycle. I have in my
Right.
hands from a company that's like, so Jerry's like, send them to me. I send them to Jerry. Jerry comes back with a full carbon fiber wheel set. Like, I don't have carbon fiber wheels on my bike. Like,
Nope.
so, and the bike came out so sick. So we got all the bike done, right? And then you and I started talking about it, and you like kind of taught me how to build a bike. Like I had done it kind of on my other bike, but like this was like we really started talking about different variations, because now I'm like, well, the bottom bracket's different size, this and that, all these different things.
So many
Which,
standards.
yeah, so it was like, so I learned a lot there, right? All the way down to even like the neck on the handlebars, how there's like four different size, handlebar, dimensions. So that was really cool. And then I know when we got it done, I went also, geez, man, I totally forgot how cool this thing was. Because then when I finished the bike, I got to go to the military museum and then do the photo shoot at the military museum, which was
Right.
wild, like another childhood, just like in there for hours looking at all the tanks and everything, right? So did the photo shoot, sent the pictures to all these different contributors, and then they all like kind of coordinated a drop all at the same time. I was on their marketing calls, like it was the coolest shit on the planet, man. Like it was probably a once in a lifetime thing. Like this will never happen to me again. But it was like my one moment where I was like, this is fucking surreal. And you know what? The entire time I didn't appreciate it. And not until just now you bring it up, and I finally like dust is settled. It was 2 years ago. I'm finally appreciating it. And let's not forget, raffled it off, made $14,000, donated it to Mission 22, Veteran Suicide Awareness, and that subject is very, very close to me. So that was a foundation that we thought would be, it was certified by the IRS, like nobody's going to scam you on it. So we gave them the money, and then the best thing I did was I took my favorite photo of me standing in front of, I think it was a Bradley tank with the word Spawn painted on the barrel, with the bike. And yeah, that's like my fucking LinkedIn picture. And then I also blew it
Yeah.
up. Like you see the size of the picture I blew up in my office. Like
Yeah. In your office.
I,
Yeah.
I was so proud of it, and that was the treat to me to always remember it. So hey, thanks for letting me rehash that. It felt amazing.
Yeah. I didn't really mean to start this long digression, but really I just wanted to point out, like, it was a super cool thing that you did, and it was cool to watch you do it. And obviously it was beneficial because, like you said, you were able to donate a decent amount of money, um, from the proceeds of the raffle itself. But really, you helped others, but like really you were helping yourself. That
It
was
was.
that was therapy. Like that was a healing process. And I was like watching that happen as you went through the whole thing.
That's
And it,
powerful,
it was
man.
pretty wild. Uh However, like at the time, I probably didn't realize how much it was going to mean to you because I didn't actually know you well enough to know how much you were struggling at the time.
Yeah. Jeez, dude, you're gonna make me cry. That's that one's kind of hitting hard, actually, Ben.
It
Yeah,
should, because it was a big deal, and I think you kind of brushed it aside a little bit.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it was a cool thing. It was a very big deal at the time. Still, I mean, still is. Yeah.
dude, you're gonna make me emotional. I was in a really bad place when you met me, and like every hour was a struggle to get through, right? Like
Mm,
every hour was a problem. And then like you're right, because when I was in that moment of time, I had something to focus on, and I had I was finally feeling like I was headed in the right direction. And And, I was getting some of those small wins like we talked about. And then, before you mentioned, kind of like we were talking, like I mentioned, sorry, that springboard. And, I got a taste of what it could feel like to just do something to help others. And then I felt like that feedback from doing that helped me feel better. And when everybody says helping others, yeah, dude, I'm so sorry. You got me so twisted up, dude. That was the hardest time of my life, and you were there for me, and you shared your passion with me, and you got me hooked into it, and you learned how to communicate with me, and you learned uh, through obviously, which I didn't know, you know, to see our relationship or to see how you helped me, right? So I'm just blown away the way you put into perspective. Nobody's ever twisted me up like that. I've never not been able to say something about a situation, and a lot of the words I'm using right now are very fluffy. But you're a very special person to me, and we have a very special relationship. Which
Yeah, well,
it's
thank you.
that simple.
I yeah, I agree. It's it's kind of funny that you talk so much about your motivation for running and whatnot, and that's very similar to bikes for me. Like, you want to come up to me and ask me about running, like, hey, what kind of running shoes should I get? I want to like go do a couple miles. Like, you don't understand what you're asking because I'm going to talk to you for 2 hours. I'm going to
Yeah,
ask you what kind of shoes you've run in the past. What do you want to do? What are your goals? Like, what's your weekly mileage? And I'm probably going to ask you 30 questions before you can even answer the first one. And, you know, when we started having those conversations, had I known maybe the struggles that you were facing at the time, I probably would have backed off a little bit, in all honesty,
yeah,
and
that's
been like,
funny.
yeah, like, why don't you go out and like try to do a couple miles? But in my head, I'm like, no, this dude, like, he's like discovered running and he wants to do it. So of course I'm like, yeah, dude, just go out and run. What do you want to do? You want to run 5 miles? No, you should probably run 8 instead. Just go do it. Tell me when you're done.
Yeah,
And
that's so great, Ben.
that's kind of what I think of now. I'm like looking back on it, I'm like, man, like, it's probably like told him to do a lot that in retrospect it's all good now, but
That's fucking awesome, dude. You made my night because like you kind of came across me. You might not have known what I was made of deep inside, right? And that was where you met me at a time where I was digging as deep as fucking possible, and I was hurting as much as I've ever hurt in my entire life. And I would literally do fucking anything to change my life immediately. And when I got like a little taste of your passion for running, and then I was like, all right, like if this guy can run, like I gotta fucking be able to run too. All right. Like I gotta be able to do it too. And like he's talking about 26 miles. And it's like, well, you know what? I can fucking do anything for any amount of time. I'm suffering so fucking bad that what's going out and running and absolutely torturing yourself. Like I literally want to die. Like I don't want to be alive. I don't want to be here. Right.
yep,
Those are the shit I was struggling with.
right,
And and then it's like, all right, well, go out and torture yourself is what people think. But it's like I went out and I fucking healed myself 1 mile at a time. And I think that when I talk to other people about running and they think it's like my whole personality and it's the only fucking thing I care about, it's not the running. It's just not. It's what you always tell me. It's the process. It's the doing. It's the suffering. It's the sitting in that pain. And it just helps you learn how to deal with more pain. And that healed me. And when you would be like, hey, yeah, like, see if you can run 5 miles. I'm like, oh, like, yeah, fuck yeah. All right, I'm gonna try to run 5 miles. And I like look back at some of my journals, dude. Like I was proud of myself for running 4 miles a week. I was literally reflecting on it, this New Year's reading my journals. And now it's like I just got done telling you like, oh, hey, yeah, I went out for like a fucking casual 7 miles after being off for 11 days. Like, and hey, by the way, I'm weighing in at like 204 pounds. Like, if you were, so I guess my question to you is, Ben, when I told you that I was going to start running and then I went and banged out the half marathon for fucking what, under 2 hours, then I go bang out the half marathon in a snowstorm in Vermont. Like from the day that you met me, and I'm like, and you met me out of shape, Mike, but he's trying to like do something with his life. If sitting there then talking to me, seeing me today, like, would you ever believe it?
So, yes, for sure.
Fuck yeah.
But it didn't take very long talking to you to understand that regardless of whatever, like innate physical ability or fitness or whatever, that your personality is gonna overcome any like current, I don't want to say shortcoming, but your personality is gonna fill any gap that needs to be filled. So if you've trained to run 10 miles, but you want to do 13, you're gonna do it because that's just in you. That's like down to your core, your personality. So, yeah, it didn't take very long to understand that probably I could tell you like anything and you would go do it.
Yes, I
Not
would
to a fault, but yeah, like I could probably just be like, Mike, like you should really just be able to go out and bang out 20 miles and you would probably do it.
tomorrow.
Not try, you would actually just go do it.
uh,
But again, we've had this conversation privately. Like we have very different personalities, so I'm much more conservative with things like that. It sounds silly to be like, "Oh yeah, I want to run 5 miles. I'll tell them to go run 8." But really, uh, I'm much more of an ease into it type of person, whereas you're just like, where do I want to be? Where am I today? Where do I want to be? I'm going to get there by tomorrow, not 6 months from now or a year from now. So I feel like even with that, I still probably eased you into it a bit, just by my own nature.
that's awesome. It's funny you say that because like I got into bikes like, and I went and built what somebody would dream of as like the bike of their lifetime, right? Like, I just was like, that was my
Hmm.
first bike. Like, boom, I'm gonna do it that way. Then I got that race car I bought, right? I blow the engine in that car. I really don't know a whole lot about it, and then I go build like a you know, show quality with 500 plus horsepower, in a Honda two seater, right? Like, that's pretty fucking cool. Like, so I
It
just
is.
when I get into something. So when you gave me a little taste of running, and then you almost teased me with it because it just keeps getting better and better if you can just survive it. That's like kind of what I look at running as is like, if you can survive it, like it just gets so much more amazing, right? Like, because I would love to run a 50K ultra marathon. I've been talking about it. It must be for like maybe almost like 2 years, maybe. And like I was talking about it when I wasn't even running like 5 miles, right? But I can just see like when again, more momentum. I completed that half marathon and like I started just insanely commit to the podcast, right? And how hesitant I was about starting this thing, and you are a big part of. And I mentioned it at some points about talk about the little steps, just stacking the little bricks, and that language that you talk to me really resonates because when I was at my worst, hour to hour, right? If I could put it together for 3 hours, that was a fucking win, right? And if I could
Right.
have a whole day where I didn't feel like I didn't want to be here, like I was fucking winning. So then I took one day and I stacked 2 days and I stacked 3 days and then I got on the bike and then I could stack fucking a week, right? And then I get back on the bike and then I commit to that process. And then while I'm talking to you about that, I'm hammering it in the gym. I was like, I get down to like 175 pounds, and then boom, I'm up to like 210, 212. Like, that's a massive improvement in the gym, right? So not only am I riding and getting better cardiovascularly, I'm also adding muscle mass. So now obviously I want to get a little more shredded and defined, but at the same time, like I was committing to every single part of trying to build endorphins inside my body so I could feel mentally better, so I could survive longer in my day without
Yeah.
having, right? So that's why, like, when I talk on the podcast about like, oh, you gotta get in the gym and you gotta eat right and you gotta do all these things. It's like I literally found a way to make myself feel better hour to hour when I was at my
Mm.
darkest moments that some people don't come back from, right? When I figured that out, I was like, okay, and any little thing and any little angle I can get to do, right? If it's okay, if someone tells me to go run 5 miles, go to the gym this many days, eat this, eat that, like I'm just gonna become a disciplined machine where almost robotic. I'm just going to execute the plan and what somebody told me to do because I'm building this map, right? And that I wish I had when I was at my worst. Because if somebody was at their worst and just flipped this switch, this little map that I've drawn, and worked it their way, they're going to change their life in ways they never thought were possible. And that's kind of where I'm
Yes.
at right now. I've never thought I'd ever be where I am today, 10/19 of 2019. Like I never in my wildest dreams would have thought. And the only difference was meeting some quality people, keeping your circle extremely small, listening to others and what works for them, and then just doing it, just executing it day after day. And every day, try to execute a little bit better than the day before and be a little more committed. And again, just like you always tell me, enjoy the journey and just trust the process. And I'm trying to do that and I've been doing it and it's been paying me dividends. So, again, thank you for all of your support in that regard. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I love to hear it. I think a lot of the support you've gotten from me has really just been somebody who's excited to talk about running and riding bikes.
Yeah, man. It's true.
Which is cool because that's probably a testament to how healing that kind of thing can be. It doesn't, certainly no professional. It might not really need to come from them. Like, you know, if you need professional help, obviously you need to seek it from a professional.
Yeah.
But um,
A professional told me to ride a
it
bike.
yeah, there's no one underestimating just simple pleasures like going for a run or riding a bike.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it brings like, I mentioned to you earlier, when we talked about riding bikes is, my therapist told me to get on a bike. I've talked about it before, but I was, like I kind of mentioned, I was so desperate to do anything. Like always say, if she told me to roll around in the street naked, I would have done it, just to feel better. But when I got
Sure.
on that bike and everything disappeared, everything I was dealing with, it was quite impactful. And then when we were talking earlier, you kind of brought something back to me about kind of like my childhood. And I told you when I was really young, as a young kid, I just would go out on my bike and just pedal until I couldn't breathe anymore. And, that made everything better. When I was had a bad day or I was feeling a certain way, I just go out and pedal. And, over 30 years later, I'm sitting here surprised as to how it worked. It's like, come on, man. The same things like that you've loved as a little kid, you still love, and they can bring you massive amounts of joy and inspiration. And then I got lined up with you, where you're obviously super inspired by those things, and I aspire to be like you. I think it's funny. Something that stuck with me that I wanted to mention was when we get together, like, because we don't, either one of us have a lot of time. We have a pretty busy schedule. Whenever we
Right.
get together, maybe it's like once or twice, a year to ride bikes or whatever, or run or whatever. You try to fucking kill me, and I think it's amazing. And I remember I said it to you, and you're like, "Well, dude, that's why you call me." And
Right.
that moment was like, I'll remember that forever, like, because it was such a fucking badass moment, or you just like, yeah, man, like, that's what I'm here for. And I want to thank you for being that person, because more people need somebody like you in their life. Because when you start to think you're good at something and then you just watch somebody just absolutely hammer on you, and you have to like dig so fucking deep, because there's a layer of like, also, I respect the shit out of you. And just like you said, like, I feel like if I told this guy to do anything, he'd go do it. It's because like, I respect you so much. I will never let you down. Like that's the level of how much I appreciate and love you. Like that, it comes down to that. Like I do not ever want to disappoint Ben Kelley, and that's part of, maybe I feel like I need to just hold that standard with you, so you continue to hold that yourself. Because here's the deal: no matter how disciplined you are, how amazing you are at something, you can slip. And I feel like the guy that you are for me, I can be that guy for you too, even though I can't compete at the level that you're competing at, right? Like, it's a very special relationship.
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot more about attitudes than actually, speed or pace or time or whatever. It's I think that stuff matters a lot less.
It's like minds.
Right.
You nailed it.
It's the attitude. I think uh even though like I mentioned, we maybe have different philosophies uh on finesse versus brute force, but it's still a very similar philosophy uh of attitude and completion, right? Whether we take baby steps to get there or we try to hammer through and just make it happen at ASAP. It's still that like, I'm not really gonna give up on this because I just don't want to. Like I
Yeah.
just want to to complete whatever I'm working. Like this is gonna happen. I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna find a way to do it. And you know, that's not just in the physical realm, like sports or fitness or whatever. That kind of translates across most aspects of probably both of our lives.
Oh, I would agree. I think that I wouldn't exist if it weren't for your philosophy because our philosophies are definitely at two different ends of the spectrum, right?
Right.
Where you're very graceful, and then I bring the 10-pound hammer, and just say, yeah, we're gonna like, yeah, Ben, do it your way. I'm gonna do it my way, and then because I'm pretty stubborn in that regard. But then I'm like, I'm dying, and you're like, hey man, like maybe just like listening a little bit. And I'm like, fuck, listen a little bit. Then I'm like getting killed again, and I'm like, I can't. I'm not recovering, and all these things. You're like, hey man, you ever like think of doing this? And I'm like, oh fuck, no, I'm not gonna do that. And then like I start doing it, and then I'm like, wow, okay. Shit, Ben's process is working. Like the day before, like the week before that half marathon, and I'm like, hey, dude, like let me like give me something to prep with, and you like send me, okay, you're gonna run 7 miles, and then you're gonna run 5 miles, and then you're gonna run 3 miles and 3 miles. I'm like, is this fucking guy out of his mind? I remember telling people like, yeah, I'm running a half marathon. Like, oh great, rest up. And I'm like, this fucking guy has me running all these miles. Like, what the like yeah, like what the fuck? I remember sitting there just down the entire thing, just like how like what? And I'm just like, you know what, dude? Ben always tells me, trust the process. I'm like, look at what he's been able to accomplish with his running. Like, maybe he fucking has discovered some secrets you haven't learned yet. So, like, I started to listen more, and then I started to, build that momentum, and then you like direct me in the right path. And dude, I gotta tell you, the day that you hooked me, and I had to write this down, was August 7th, 2022. It was that day we did that 1 mile sprint in Newburyport. And
Okay.
I remember
Yep.
exactly when you invited me. I was living in Everett. I was sitting at the kitchen table. I was eating, and I get the text from you. And it's like, hey, dude, like you just like, I think you just sent me the invite and said, hey, dude, let's do this. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like first of all, I don't like going to like public things anyway, and I definitely don't want to go to a 1 mile sprint because I wasn't ready
Yep.
mentally, and I was trying to bitch out. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, again, I told you I respect Ben Kelley more than anything, and I would never let him down. I just knew that I had to, if I was going to keep face in front of you, I had to sign up for that shit, no matter whether I wanted to do it or not. And then I had to go train for it. So I put up a respectable effort so I didn't look like a
Yep.
bitch in front of you, right? So now I'm like, okay, let's do it. And that was a turning point in my life where I was like in that starting to try to self growth phase, but I was still making excuses and I was still trying to like, weasel my way out of things that were hard and not like trying to elevate myself, right? So I had somebody in my circle that I really
Right.
looked up to, which is you, and you were pushing me. I had two options. Could pull away from you, make excuses, or I could push towards you, do what you say I should do, and just grow. And I've done that. And the more that I grow, the more I push towards you, the more you expand my mind. But I'll tell you, dude, that day you awakened like that animal that used to be inside of me that had died, and that old guy that existed who no longer wanted to fight. Because training for that 1 mile sprint, I learned a lot about myself. worked through a lot of pain, but then getting there, and I was totally out of my element. I had like a fucking hat on. I had two AirPods in, fucking like big clunky sunglasses. I had sweatpants, shorts, and like a regular T-shirt. And Devin's like, hey, dude, you really look like a runner. She's like fucking making fun of me. And I'm like, what? Like, I need my music and stuff. And obviously, fast forward to now, my uncle who's running ultras is like, dude, you can't wear headphones. And I know you've said that to me a million times. And like, just thanks for setting the standard, Ben. So I don't look like a fucking moron. So now I feel
Yeah.
better out there running. But that day I ran a 5 minute, 38-second mile. And
Which was
the
faster than me, by the way. After
I
that
got
whole thing, you even ran faster than me.
I got lucky. That'll never happen again. Um, that'll never happen again. But you, like, I wasn't gonna let you embarrass me, no matter what. And I was dying. We were at 3/4 mile, and I was like, dude, I'm okay with dying out here, because dying out here would be more respectful to
It'd
Ben
just
than
be
not.
over.
Yeah, than not putting up a good number and not doing something respectable, and showing that I could complete something that I committed to do.
Yep.
And I've never felt more alive during those moments. But when I was reeling people in like a fucking fisherman, dude, just like at the end, and I was just screaming coming across the finish line, like just like screaming, let's go. Like I was, that's like a drug that nobody could ever reproduce. Like I was numb. My whole body was numb. I couldn't breathe. I was committed to dying, didn't care what happened, right? That's like how you finish, no matter what. You dump it all out. And then, I was sitting down after having a banana, and like, you're like, hey, dude, like, nice job. And I was like,
Yeah,
pretty proud of myself. Like a nice job
for
from
sure.
Ben Kelley was like, it was a compliment of a lifetime, dude. So like you pushed me to do more. And then that one that, like, I still remember this. I couldn't even believe I did it. And you just look at me and you're like, hey, dude, like, I knew you had that switch. Like, you
Oh
just showed
yeah.
it off. Like it was like I could have stopped right there living. It was the best part of my life when you said that, because it was like, you know what? I do have that fucking switch. Like I can still do that type of shit. And now I've just been trying to do that type of shit no matter what. And we it's just, and when you challenge me to go out to that that mile sprint, like I was like, that's some badass shit. Like this dude just like, hey, let's just go do this. And I'm like, that shit, like I would never have dreamt of being able to do. And with you pushing me, and then like, sprinkling things into my mind and just letting it grow, Ben, I got to tell you, dude, you have a lot to do with who I've become, and I'm very proud of who I've become. And it's a long fucking road away from where I used to be, and that's why I'm so passionate that other people jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome to hear. That's like, yeah, it's really exciting to think of that, that I've had a part in that. It means a lot to me for sure. And a lot of it was, whatever way that I was being supportive, was it was unwittingly occurring, which I think is even kind of cooler,
It's
because
good to
like
speak.
we were just talking, like we were just talking about bikes, or talking about running, uh, and that alone is a pretty cool thing.
Ben, that's honestly, dude, in my mind, that's like what makes you so cool. Is like you're doing the coolest fucking shit, and you make it look easy, like that. And that just like, I don't want to say it keeps me up at night, but it like inspires me to just like want to achieve that. Like where it's just like, yeah, we're not run my bike like 200 miles. It's like, what you do?
Well, it's
What?
just fun. Like, it's not, sure, like running can hurt and cycling can hurt or whatever, but like it's all fun. If I'm not having fun, I'm probably not doing it
But
overall.
I have fun
Yep.
doing it now too. You
Right.
know,
And that's like the secret that people who
it
don't do
is.
it don't get.
Yes.
It's not this, you know, it doesn't have to be this suffering thing. There's going to be some in there. And part of that is people kind of do strive for that. They want to be in that hurt locker. They want to be suffering. They want to like feel all of that against them. Um, but more often than not, it's fun.
It
I
is.
don't think I would be doing it very much if it wasn't.
It wasn't always fun, but when you get to a point where you're proficient at it, you can just totally make it the best part of like your day, straight
Yeah,
up. Like,
it's definitely not always fun. Cycling in the basement, like we were just talking about on my trainer tonight, when it's below freezing outside and dark at 4:30
yeah,
p.m. That's not always fun. And doing that for the next 2 months until it starts getting light out in the afternoon, things like that. Sure, that there's a little bit of suffering there, but it's all kind of for the greater cause of just going out and having fun.
of course it is. It's a great point. To expand on it, when I was telling you, I moved to Essex, right? That was and I've been going through a lot of stress with the big move of my, moving all my life, and there's a lot of other factors that are stressful right now for me,
Sure.
uh, including not being recovered like I would need to be, and having to take some time off. That's been very hard, and you've always told me to enjoy that. Enjoy that rest, and I'm still working on that. That's something I wrote in my journal is I need to learn to slow down. I think that that's like a bigger thing of like how I mentioned like I got the 10-pound hammer and you're the finesse and the way. It's like I'm still having a hard time listening exactly step by step. I still want to try to do it my way, but I'm starting to see more of where you're headed with that, because it is all about the consistency and the discipline over time, and it is about doing the things that aren't fun to then be able to look at running and say it's fun, right? So what I've heard you mention, it kind of relates to me as when I'm out there running, the 3, the 4, the 5 miles underneath the headlamp in the 32 degrees, or the 46 degrees and raining, right? Like all those different conditions. When I'm out there doing that with a headlamp on in the dark, that's the stuff. So that like literally after moving all my shit in my entire life, the next day I wake up on New Year's and go for a casual 7 mile run in the rain and have the absolute best fucking day of my life. Like after the most stressful day of my life, it's like that's what all of those hard days are about that nobody wants to do, to be able to, when the stress comes to totally fuck your shit up, you can just go out and shake it off with a 7 mile run and just your entire life restarts. I mean,
Right.
so it's about putting in those hard days, and you've shown me what that looks like. And I'm not always able to do it to your level, but I see the bricks that I'm stacking and I see what they're going to build. And once you kind of get to that level, I see why people want to keep expanding, because like you just have the energy just becomes more and more, and you can go further and further. And, I said this to myself when I was running, on New Year's. I, I've never had so much fun, and I've never, seen a place as for so much beauty as it is unless you run through the place. Like I drove. So you and me, right, planned that run you and I planned on Strava that one day
Yeah.
when before I even moved, right? Like that's what I love
Yeah.
about running is like I haven't even moved yet, haven't even
No,
booked the
that's the first thing you have
U-Haul,
to do is look at Strava heat maps and see where you
dude.
can run.
Dude, it's the best thing ever. So like during one of the most stressful times of my life when I haven't even booked the U-Haul, I haven't figured out like any of this shit what to do. I'm like, hey Ben, come here. Like, where am I gonna run in this new town? Like that shit's amazing, and I never like appreciate all those little moments that you've been able to give me. Like, that's great. And then like literally, I was waiting all week, all like not all week. What was it? It was like a month, 2 months, like all through the holidays. I'm like, I can't wait to go on that fucking run. Like, I'm really excited. This is going to be awesome. And then it was everything I thought it would be and more. But I would never, ever get to have experienced the best feeling I've ever experienced in my life if it weren't for have meeting you, learning from you, experiencing your passion, and then you helping me pursue it. I believe at, a decent level. I'm not trying to be a professional, but I'd say I'm at a pretty decent level pursuing running in addition to lifting and all these other things I'm doing at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And it's just, if I hadn't done that stuff, I would never have gotten to experience how great it is to see this town that I'm in love with. I think because of this run, uh, the
Hmm.
sheer beauty of it. Right. I drove that route after you and I planned it. I drove it with a car. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty sweet. Yeah, like cool. Like
Right.
it's not too busy. I go and run it, and there's a little mist, and it's overcast. And I'm like, I gotta fucking relive this. It matched the feeling that I got when I ran that half marathon in Vermont with the blizzard conditions. Like, and I've just, dude, during that run, I FaceTime my mom and dad because I just wanted to feel them to feel the stoke when I was running in that half, that half marathon in the snow. Because
Yeah,
my mom used to be a runner, right? And I could just see she just fucking appreciated it. And she was just like, I know that feeling. And you know the feeling I'm talking about, but nobody else is going to get that feeling if they don't put in that work. So it's like you just have to just like chase that amazing result and the appreciation of the days you put in to get there.
definitely. It really is. It's very difficult to describe that to others who haven't experienced it. And I get that a lot. I get that, from people either who aren't runners or do too much outdoor activity. And I kind of explain some of the things that I do, or, oh, this weekend, yeah, we're planning to do this. And a lot of, I get a lot of those like, oh, I don't know how you do that. Or like, you're crazy, stuff like that. And that's certainly not the reason that I'm doing it for the reactions from these people. But um, when I hear stuff like that, all I really hear is people they'll just never understand because they've never
Mm-hmm.
done it. And that's a bummer for them because
Yeah.
they don't even know, but they're missing out on this like pretty incredible thing. It's a whole aspect of their life. It's like in a video game, like they haven't unlocked that level
Yes.
and they just don't understand. And you can try to explain like, oh, well, yeah, like runner's high is a real thing or it's an endorphin release or whatever. But until you actually experience it, I don't know. It's probably, I've never done drugs. Like it's probably as close to the feeling of doing drugs as you can get. It's
Dude.
that chemical release. Like you don't. Yeah, I don't know. It must be better because you got there on your own, right? Like it's just such a cool thing.
Well, it's kind of funny. I always try to capture it. I remember I sent you like a voice note once about like how I was so stoked. I wish I still had it. Like, because I say this voice note like after this long run or something, and just like feeling the achievement and just knowing all like the tears that I've pushed through, right? Like of just like being so frustrated, being like I can't do it, being like I can't get out on my shoes today, and I don't want to, and then being out there when you're out there, you're like I can turn around, nobody will know. I'm pushing through all these things, and you make that look easy, but I'm pushing through all these things, and then I'm just telling myself for me. So how I survive that is when I'm running in the rain and I got my headlamp on and there's nobody around, it motivates the shit out of me. Like I'm the baddest motherfucker out here. I'm doing what the 1%'s doing, right? I want to be the best guy I can be every single day. That's all that it is for me. Like the running, it's I want to be the best guy I can be, and I want to make sure that I'm trying to get an angle on everything that I can possibly do to become better. And the running has where I've kind of anchored all of my life and my discipline is in the running and in the gym. And I haven't really thought about this before, but you sparked my memory here. Like, I'm really thinking I've anchored in the gym and running, and I say I'm never going to bend on those things. I'm going to do those things, and the byproducts are as I become stronger, I become faster, I become more confident, I become happier, I can deal with more stress. I anchor in that, and then I become better at everything else I do. So like you draw lines out from that, and then there's like Mike as a leader, the Mike as a husband, and then Mike as this and that. And, I always look up to you as how you are as a partner and how you are as a father. And I try to model a lot of your behaviors, and I appreciate, you always leading, even though you don't think anybody's watching. And
Mm,
people are always watching, Ben, and I've been watching you from day one. And I think that's the bigger part of what this is you have been unapologetically you. You have not cared about what people think. You have shared in an honest way with the best at heart, right? And you've done that for me, and because you're a great leader. So I've been watching you. You've been holding the standard every single day, being the best you can be, and that has given me something to look at and emulate. And that's what this is, in my mind. If I really break it down, it's not about the running. It's about me looking at Ben, who's great at this, great at all these different things. And it says, Mike, you can't slack on any of those things in your life because Ben can do it all and he can do it all at a great level. So that's what this is all about. And running just happens to be something that you like to do that I think I need to continue to try to do and be the best at as well. But that wouldn't have
Mm.
happened if you weren't being the leader that you are, because you're a humble guy and you'll never say that about yourself. What I just said, but it's 100% true. And, the world would need to know that. Very, very special.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That was a lot. That was a lot to think about.
It's from the heart. It's from the heart, brother.
But yeah, that's certainly a good feeling to hear those kinds of things. And um, yeah, I think there's probably some lessons in there to take away from that. That's great.
Hell yeah, dude. Something that really, it was like the biggest compliment to me, one of the biggest compliments of my life when I signed up for that half marathon. And that how big of a step that was for me. Absolute
Yeah,
fucking huge bound to
it's a
go
big
do it.
step for
Actually,
anybody. That's you know, I don't know what the numbers are, but that's like, yeah, 1% of the population will ever do that,
that's amazing to
right?
think about. And you got me there. And then this is the best part, and this is what's so cool about who you are. And I maybe didn't even tell you how much I appreciate it, but I am at that half marathon. The entire week leading up to that, I was, posting about it, which is super out of my comfort zone to even post my face on social media. But I was just like forcing myself to do it because I have to do video on the podcast, right, to get to the next level. Like that's my next challenge, right? And you know that. But anyway, so I was super insecure about the whole thing, even in the end of the day. But I'd done the work, and you kept telling me, dude, listen, you did the work. When you go out for the race, it's for fun. And you told me that, and I'm there, and then you show up on your bike. Like I'm like, oh man, like fucking Ben's here. Like the guy who's been coaching me, like, and who I respect the shit out of, is like here to support me, and that meant a lot. And of course, my wife and my family was there, but they would tell you that you being there was meant way more to me than them being there. And that is what it is. So that was badass. And then, I was super nervous a couple miles out because you always kind of taught me like, hey, listen, you got to stay disciplined. You got to run your race. And, I was running with, Kyle. That's a whole other side story. That's a great one that I hope we get to tell on the podcast. But I'm running with another guy and I want to be trying to work the right plan. So, the other guy has a good plan to go off of, and we'll kind of survive this thing together, because he's not like this,
Right.
super marathoner. We're both like kind of first time out, and he was really pushing himself outside his comfort zone, which is an amazing story too. But you're there on your bike and you're just like, hey, Mike, like, and then I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? Like, you're like, all right, so you're going to do, this, you'll be good. Just fucking have fun, whatever. Gun goes off. I'm like, shitting my pants for the first couple miles, scared of like, oh my God, what I just take on. And then I come up, I'm starting to like, feel all right, get a little discomfort going. And then I see you like kind of up at the corner. You're like, all right, hey, like, dude, looking good, looking good. Like, I'm like, oh shit, like this is amazing. And then the best stoke of my day was just like, and hopefully I like conveyed that to you in the moment, but you were like kind of pedaling like right with us in the race course, right? And like
Oh yeah,
I'm like,
I was right in there.
dude, it was awesome. And like, Kyle was like right next to me and you were on my right, and we were just running, and I'm kind of like, and you must have known how stoked I was, because I was just talking so excited, like a bunch of shit the entire time, like cheering at the crowd who's like cheering on the runners. And I was like in the zone. And
Yeah, I could
I
hear you
just,
guys coming down the hill. I could hear you talking.
everybody was dead silent. There's like me and this other guy who, he's pretty built. He's got a lot of muscle on him. He looks good. We're just kind of like out of place as runners. And we're just kind of like two guys who like to go to the gym that are just going to go like face fuck a half marathon. Like that's kind of how it felt. And I loved
Yeah.
every second of it. And for you to be there with me, like I felt like Superman. I just did. Like I felt almost, I want to say like a famous person running like this thing. Like I got my whole team with me, like you're cheering me on, Kyle's cheering me on. We're like, we're gonna go run this thing, and we're gonna put up a respectable number, right? 1 hour,
Yep.
59 minutes. Like I put up a respectable number, after you training me, you being there for me. So that was special, right? Like there's nobody else in my life that grabbed their bike and went and fucking rode next to me for a part of my half marathon. Like, dude, honestly, those are life moments that people will never fucking experience.
Yeah, well, it's cool to hear you say that, but it's not. I feel like it's not as one sided as it sounds. Because when you said you were signing up for that, and had the situation been a little different, I probably would have tried to run it with you. But um, my reaction to hearing you sign up for that was like, oh, this is awesome. Like I got excited for you. You know, I was like living vicarious, like Mike's doing a half marathon. Like this is awesome. I'm like, when is, and the fact that it was in, the next town over made it easy for me. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be there. Like this is, I can get down there. Like I can sneak in on my bike. I don't have to deal with traffic. I'll just like, I'll get in on my bike around the roadblocks and all that. And it's going to be awesome. Like I was looking forward to it. I was pumped about it. So it wasn't I don't think it's as one-sided as you think. It was pretty awesome for me too, and like knowing whatever that was a year or two ago, where you're like, do you think like I can't, I've never done more than 2 miles or whatever you said, like can I do like a 5K, or like how do I get to 5 miles or whatever, um knowing that it started there, and then to see you just like kind of having a blast running this half marathon. It was really cool from my end, and it was a beautiful course, and like I said, most people don't do that. Like you look at the numbers, like most people won't experience that, and it was just, I was pumped for you, knowing that like you don't ever get that first one again, and
Yeah.
that is just such a cool thing to do.
Yeah. It was feeling that will stick with you for your lifetime. And I appreciate you being a part of that, because that's like, if I could just have crafted it in my own head, that like I couldn't have done it any better, like, and just the overall feeling. And I know the guy running with me has that same feeling about it as well, like just the experience. And I told him, I'm like, hey, Kyle, you got to get on the podcast. We got to talk about like what that feeling is. Like the world needs to hear two people who ran their first half marathon talk about the stoke. Like it, I mean, I don't even know if I'd be able to communicate with them about it other than just look at him and just be like, dude, like that was, that was like fucking amazing. Right. And like, it's the best feeling in the world. I've had a lot of happy moments in my life, and I've played hockey at a very high level. Had some really great things happen to me. Had some great people around me at great times, and nothing stacked up to that. Like
Yeah.
that was the best thing on the planet. And people wonder why I want to get them hooked on running. It's like, look what it's done for my fucking life. Like, it's not just running. Like professionally, I've done great in my career because of running. Like because it just every single day, it just challenges you. And there's nothing else in the world that can challenge you to that level every single day. And I think we just grow to love that challenge. And that's why like you're out there getting your masters. Like I believe there's no mistake that I got my masters, right? And we've been hanging out and talking, and then you're like, fuck it, like, hey, if Mike did it, like, I gotta fucking do it. So like, I think there's a point where we're pushing each other, and we might not even realize it. And it's a couple magnets just being like, let's look at what he just did. Oh fuck, like that means I can do something like that and push myself harder. So I always say that there needs to be those mentors and those people around you that are always wishing, not wishing, but making you elevate your game. And you are that guy for me, and that's like just paying dividends into my life. And again, it's like it's not about the running, but it is about the running. But it's not about the running, but it is. And then wow, my life is just getting better because I keep running consistently. What the fuck is that? And it's like that's a great pattern to have. Like, why would everybody in the world not just stop what they're doing and be like, fuck it, I'm going out and I'm going to run half a mile, and I'm going to do half a mile for 6 weeks, and I'm going to, because Mike said that there's this feeling that I've never experienced in my entire life. Like, you're confirming that this feeling exists. And I know if I ask Kyle if this feeling exists, he'd say the same thing. Like, everybody in the world that runs will say the feeling exists. So why wouldn't people who don't do it go do it? And that's what I'm trying to figure out. And I'm just going to keep putting my story out there and keep talking about discipline and talking about all these mindset and all this stuff, because I hope somebody, it hooks them like it hooked me, and then they get to start experiencing life. Ben, when I met you, I just looked at the way that you experienced life and said, it's no way that I've ever done it, and I want to do it because there's some twinkle in Ben's eye. There's a special part about him that I want to experience that. I want to be like that. And that's kind of like how this has kind of happened.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that perspective. And you know, not to harp on people who aren't runners. You can certainly find plenty of joy in your life without running, but the reason that people don't do it is because it is hard, right? Like as much as we're talking up physical activity and endorphins and runner's high or whatever, uh, there is that suffering component. So you don't just most of the time go run for 10 minutes and feel euphoric. You might a little bit at first, but it is hard. It's something that you do have to put work into, and it's not something that you can really kind of do here and there. It's something that kind of has to be a part of you. It has to be a part of your personality, your daily life, whether you run every day or 5 days a week or whatever. It's generally not something that you can do for a week and then 6 months later you do it again. You need that consistency, and that's difficult. People don't have time, energy, whatever. Most people have plenty of excuses. I'm guilty of that myself. But that's why people don't do it. And that's why some people never will, and some people do it and get away from it and get back to it or not or whatever. But it's one of those things that, like, the reason that you felt that way when you completed that race is because there's no shortcut. Like that race was possible because of every step you took before it leading up to that. And it's one of the only things that literally you cannot cheat. Like it's everything that you do that you did on that day, right, is a product of what you had done up to that point. And that in and of itself, regardless of those endorphins, that is a great feeling, just knowing that you did it. Very similar to completing your MBA, right? And it's like, sure, you can plagiarize or cheat in school. Uh, that aside, most people don't, obviously, but that it's that similar thing where, like, that degree is really just a confirmation of all the work that you had done up to that point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the same with running.
For when you say that, I'm thinking something, right? Like it's you versus you every second. Like I even think you might have described it to me like this, but my pursuit is of strengthening the mind, right? And gaining more discipline. So how do you strengthen a muscle? You have to work it out, right? No matter what it is. So you want to have a stronger mind because you want to be able to say no to the bag of chips, or you want to be able to go for the hard promotion at work, but you're scared, or you need to get on an airplane, but you don't have the discipline because you can't fight you versus you, right? It applies to all of these things. Running is every second you versus you. You can stop or you can keep going. And when you just try to go as long as you can, right, which is like, hey, I got 7 miles and then I just kind of couldn't do it anymore. All it is you're lost that you versus you. So then you go back and you do it again. And it's the more times you face off against you versus you, the stronger your mind becomes. And you're able to do all the things that you haven't been able to do before. So all I'm doing when I'm running, I believe, is training my mind to be able to stand in there longer than it could the day before, because every part of my life I have to exercise that level of discipline, right? When I have to go have a hard conversation with somebody at work, I can just ignore the conversation. I don't have to go have it, because really, well, is anybody going to know I didn't have the conversation? No, but I'm going to know, and I'm going to need to be strong to be able to have that conversation, because nobody wants to do those things, just like nobody wants to run and no one wants to do these things. All I'm doing is trying to condition my brain to stand in there a few seconds longer than it used to. And I've done that consistently over 5 years. And now I've reached a point where I've convinced myself that I can literally do anything because I can continue to stand in there longer day after day and it doesn't scare me anymore. And when we talk about the running, I say, yeah, the running has changed my life. That's what the running has done. The running has helped me grow my mind and realize that I can do more things than I ever thought I could. And it's not just to do with the running, it's to do with like I can do better at this job. I can learn this. I can, do this podcast and I can do 100 episodes. No matter how hard it is. Oh, I can do schoolwork every day for 2 years, every weekend. When I'm out riding my bike in Tahoe, well, I got to do schoolwork first. When I'm sitting on an island in Maine, well, I got to do schoolwork first. I can still remember the teacher's name. I can still, like, it's one of those things where I can just keep doing it consistently. So then people say, oh, well, Mike, you can accomplish anything, consistency over time. Well, I can be the most consistent motherfucker out there with a lot of fucking things, and I'm going to keep doing it because every time I keep being a little more consistent with a little more things, my life just keeps getting better. I just feel like I'm just getting started, man. I've only been doing this for 5 years, and I just feel like I've grown 20 years in five, in all aspects of my life. So when I get on here and I talk about,
Yeah,
better, right? I mean, you've seen it firsthand. Like, I'm not making the shit up.
absolutely.
So it's special, man. I appreciate it all. You've awakened my mind so much. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. It's exciting to hear.
Listen, man, did I overwhelm you?
No, I don't think so.
Well, listen, dude, is there anything you want to leave us with? How about what is something you hope people will, take away from our journey together? Because I'd like to see somebody have a relationship like this in their life too.
Well, yeah, I think a big part of what I enjoy so much about even just like when we're at work and I pop over to your office and we chat for 30 minutes or whatever. Uh there's no like neither of us have an ulterior motive. Like neither of us are looking to get something out of the relationship,
Yeah.
right? It's just there's no there's no like underlying theme that we're not like undercutting each other. We're just talking about stuff that we both are passionate about. And I think as we said before, it elevates both of us, right? Whether it's professionally or through higher education or athletic endeavors, right? Like there's no doubt that seeing you go through that process of getting your MBA was a source of inspiration, right? It's like a challenge um, or just the idea, just thinking about it, and that certainly had an effect on me, uh, and was part of the inspiration as to what kind of led me to pursue my own master's. Um, so yeah, I think that's a pretty unique thing. A lot of especially face-to-face conversations these days, it seems like somebody always wants something, but having somebody that you can just talk to and like know that there's no angle, like it's just conversation about real things, you know, not, oh, did you see, no, like no gossip. Did you see what happened to this guy? Oh my
Yeah,
God, did you
yeah,
see
yeah.
see that guy last week? Like, oh man. Uh, there's none of that like garbage that comes along with so much.
I love that. I love to hear you say that. That is special because I just feel like when I see you, and I don't get to see you all the time, but that half hour I get to see you is like one of the best times I've had all week. I say, oh, what's up? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm getting killed here, I'm getting killed there, and you're like, all right, try this, and then maybe dial back on that. And then, I kind of talk to you a little bit about, how school's going and boom, boom, boom. And you're like, all right, dude, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I gotta, go cook dinner and do all these things. Right. And I'm like, just
Right.
looking, I'm like, man, that was fucking great. Like I got so much more energy. And I always talk to people about like energy and how like I don't know if everybody gets to experience that with somebody, but like every time I get finished talking to you, and there's very few people like this in my life, you just talk to a few of these people that are in your circle, and maybe that's why they're in your circle, but they just give you like energy for the next 2 months. And you're like, all right, like I've got more work to do. And you always show up at the right time. And thank you for being like open to listening, right? Because a lot of people would just tune out and be like, this fucking guy is out of his mind. And I get that a lot, right? But you're like intently listening, and then you're there to hear me out, and then you give me a couple suggestions, and they all always have been great and always make sense. They make my journal quite often. There's a lot of Ben Kelley thought process in my journal. I was just thinking about it because I quoted one on the episode before this. You'll recognize it when you listen to the end. I read a journal entry out in the previous podcast, and
All right,
it
cool.
was when you told me to take baby steps. One step at a time is bigger than a step you never take, and that was something that really helped me move forward with this. Trust me, that was playing in the back of my head on repeat. So
Yeah.
little things, Ben. I guess the big takeaway too is little things that you say might influence people's lives considerably. So always be holding the standard and always be the best person that you can possibly be, like you have always been. And I think that great things come your way. I think that's kind of how we can leave it.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
It's
Yeah, well,
awesome, man.
thank you so much. This has been awesome. It's really no different than any of our other conversations. It's always great to chat and hopefully people want to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited that you came, and I think just coming on the podcast was also a challenge to you. I wasn't going to let you not show up, and it's been, as I've said, one of the hardest parts of my life I've ever done. This is harder than running. This is harder than anything. Getting on here and having a podcast, and I can't imagine how you feel coming on for your first podcast. So again, to everybody out there, you got to keep pushing through the comfort zone, no matter how difficult it is, and even if it just doesn't feel great, take every opportunity you can, jump on it, and really achieve. So thanks, Ben, so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I'll land the plane here, folks. You've just heard from someone who lives discipline and growth every day. Ben shows us that success is about showing up, doing the work, and holding yourself accountable. So ask yourself, are you making excuses or are you making progress? No more hiding, no more running. Stand up, own your life, and show the world who you are. Choose accountability or choose mediocrity. See you next time. Stay relentless.